nights. Let me give you the latest. Still in my no face coat on my favorite Nikes. Yeah, it could have been worse. I've been in the dirt and still not staying inside. I still do up the laces tight in case man pull up and make it fly. Cause it's cold outside, the road's on fire and I'm ducking the heat. Mum prays that sun no die, so I watch both sides.
I'll be real with you guys, I was not going to record this week until Vladis messaged me saying, Ethan, what time tomorrow? And I said, you know what? I'm gonna keep on going. It's been probably one of the most challenging weeks in the business. My mental toughness was really challenged, but because of your comments and everyone telling me that I need to keep on going, I'm gonna make sure I show up every week and answer some of your questions today.
Man got left in the dirt, they were more concerned with the chicks and fame. Me and them on a different page, cause true say being consistent pays. Can't count all the lessons we learned just to get a return on the risks we take. Celebrate every victory straight, my cup.
So today I'm gonna start by answering, I'm not even gonna start, that's what I'm gonna be doing today. I'm gonna be answering all the questions I've been getting in the comments, and thank you guys for all the comments that you put below. Trust me, when it comes to weeks like this, that's what keeps me going to continue putting out content and just trying to give as much value as possible. So one of the questions that I got asked was, how did you get started? So I started my property journey, I would like to say 2021, because that's when I purchased my first property, but I always talk about the journey before that, which was the education phase. So I picked up my first property book, which was Property Investing for Beginners by Rob Dix. I picked that up in the year 2019, I believe. So it was 2019, I was at University of Birmingham, I was studying chemistry. So when I began a chemistry degree, I quickly knew that I was not going to do anything to do with chemistry. I knew I wanted to be in the business world. So whilst I was at uni, I was educating myself about how do I get into property. And again, it's a classic book that got me into the whole investment space, which was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's going to be one of the first books I give to my children to read when it talks about financial literacy. Because although it does sound very cliche, that book really did open up a lot for me. And I read that in my first year of uni, and then since then, my journey began. Second year of uni, picked up that book about property, and that's where it got started. I started watching lots of YouTube videos, listening to loads of podcasts, and just trying to absorb as much information as possible that had anything to do with property. I just got myself obsessed with property and taking all the information. And then in year 2020, I graduated from uni and I began a grad scheme program as a business analyst at Nationwide. And that's when my plan was to get a good job and then essentially save up and then purchase my first property. However, I got exposed to raising finance, and then that's when I started taking on mentors on board who then showed me the power of using other people's money, leveraging that to invest in property, invest in assets, give them a fixed return, and you can then build your portfolio and accelerate your journey from then on. So essentially, my number one step getting into property was just the education phase. Get yourself educated, get yourself a mentor, be obsessed, and take action. Because as soon as I came out of uni, my number one mission, 6 months after I graduated, I purchased my first property. And that's because I was just willing to take action, not sit on a fence. And the cash flow I was getting in from my job, I was using that to invest back into myself, into mentorship, into groups that will help me accelerate my journey, essentially. Now, the next question is, what is the best strategy? I'm not going to say there's no best strategy, because property is not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? And I always say this to a lot of people. They say, what should I do? Should I do flip? Should I do HMOs? Should I do rent to rent? I can't tell you what to do unless you know what you want to achieve out of that current strategy. So the best thing to do is look at your own personal situation, look at what you want to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years, and then you reverse engineer that into a strategy that suits you. So for myself, in the next 5 to 10 years, I want to be in a situation where I've got good, consistent, passive income coming in, and then it gives me the time freedom to work on other projects and explore other areas of business. Now, strategies that allow me to do that is the HMO strategy, because you're getting consistent income on a regular basis. And that can be passive as long as you pass it on to a management company. Yes, you pay the cost of it, but I always say that's the cost of peace, that's the cost of freedom. So with my personal situation, HMOs is what's going to be able to take me to that place to achieve that. Hence why I'm doubling down on HMOs. And don't get me wrong, you will also see me flipping properties. Now, I'm not just flipping properties just because I want to make things pretty, take nice photos and sell it on. I'm flipping these properties because when I am executing BRRR, which is your buy, you refurbish, you refinance, and you rent. Essentially, when you refinance, there may be some situations where you don't pull out all your money, you don't pull out all the equity that you put into the property. So you would have increased equity, but when you are refinancing it, you're refinancing against 75% of the GDV. And if you've put in £150,000 into a property and you get, let's say, £110,000 back out and you've left £40,000 in that property, yes, there's going to be a time where you recoup that £40,000. However, where I want to accelerate and fill that gap in is doing the flip, so that if I'm making 50 to 100 grand on a flip, that will allow me to recoup my funds quicker so that I can invest it back into more HMOs. So that's essentially the strategy that I'm going down. There isn't the best strategy. There's probably, what I can only say is there's better strategies for your desired outcome. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Now, another question I've got here is, what are the positives and negatives of HMOs and flips? All right, I could go on for ages with this one, but I'll give you a couple for both of you just to give you some perspective. So in terms of HMOs, the biggest positives for them is net cash flow per month. HMOs, especially in the London area, you can easily net profit around £2,000 from anything from a 5-bedroom and above. And then you've got that regular income, high demand. Rents usually, well, across the last 10 years have only gone one direction, and that's up. And that's only going to increase as cost of living increases. People look to downsize for higher quality co-living spaces, young professionals moving into high densely populated spaces, and they're looking for accommodation to live, and they want a certain standard. So there is a lack of housing for them that is affordable, so then they look at co-living spaces like HMOs, essentially. So that's a really good positive about that, because increase in demand, increase in income. Another good thing is the refinance process takes a lot quicker than a sales process, which I like. There's a lot more that is in your control. And then I would say the last advantage with them is that you create equity. You create a lot of equity in them, you force the appreciation, and you can sit on that equity for 10, 20, 30 years time to come. And when it's time, you can release more equity by refinancing it, or release your equity by selling the property. So those are good advantages about HMO. Negatives about HMO: higher barrier to entry. Some people would see that as a positive. I also still see that as a bit of a positive, but let's just call it a negative for now. Higher barrier to entry, because that means essentially it's more capital intensive and it's more complicated. Therefore, you need to make sure when you are moving to do HMO, there's a lot of red tape around it, and you've got the right support, mentorship, and people around you who have actually done HMOs before, because it's an increase in space, and the government is trying to slow down the production of HMOs. They are putting more regulation and red tape into the spaces, such as the Article 4 directions in certain boroughs. And another disadvantage I would say is, I guess it's a complex builds, right? When you are flipping properties, you're looking at it based on the functionality of a single family, but now when you're looking at HMOs, you need to look at the functionality on 6 people using 6 bathrooms, and what happens if everyone's using a bathroom at the same time? So you need to make sure you're putting in the right materials, using the right power supplies and things like that. There's a lot more that you need to consider. Heating systems, plumbing systems, and making sure there's even things like water pressures, right? It's a lot more complicated in terms of the build. So I would say that is the last disadvantage with HMOs. And the last question is, why are people watching this channel and not subscribing, liking and sharing? I don't know. I don't know, you tell me. Guys, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe so I can keep these videos coming, keep all the value coming, and I will see you guys next week. It's going to be a more positive week. I'm praying. God gave me his favor this week, although it was a very tough, mentally challenging week. I was able to get through it. I'm still here, I'm still alive, I'm still healthy, and there's a lot to be happy about, and the next week is looking super positive. So hopefully we're going to be back on sites. I'm going to tell you there's good news, and I can share all my blessings with you guys. So yeah, catch you in the next video.